Hello and welcome to another episode of Other Items of Interest. I'm your host, Jack Zablocki. On today's show, it's more of the same. Everything you heard on previous episodes, we got on this episode. But we got some creepy crawly stories. Gross. Disgusting. You'll enjoy it. Maybe. Alright, this is how we're going to start out. From newshub.co.nz, driver who swerved to avoid an octopus was actually high. A UK man has blamed an octopus, squid, and even whitebait for why he crashed and flipped his car. Robert Shapley, 49, told police at the scene of the crash the sea creatures had caused him to overturn his car, despite the crash occurring at least 3 kilometers from any ocean. The Newton Abbot Magistrates Court heard that he told officers, "It got a bit bumpy for a while. I swerved to avoid an octopus. And it is pretty bad out there having to dodge all that whitebait." The man from Devon was eventually checked by paramedics and tested for any drugs in his system. Though not physically harmed, Shapley was found to have morphine, codeine, cannabis, and a byproduct of heroin in his system. Prosecutor Philip Sewell told the court that the drugs had had an obvious effect. He was stumbling around, he wasn't coherent. He was talking about squid, octopus, and other sea creatures, Mr. Sewell said, later adding that Shapley pretended to be reading an imaginary book about hedgehogs at one point. Shapley pleaded guilty to a charge of driving while unfit through drugs, though he stated he didn't remember taking any before driving that day. Godspeed, you glorious bastard. And this article may be as strange as the previous one. This one comes from the Springfield News-Sun. Man strips naked, smears self with oil in bizarre Pennsylvania school burglary. And if you check the show notes, you can check the link to this article, and there's a, I don't want to say creepy, leering mugshot. It's unsettling. A Pennsylvania man is accused of breaking into an elementary school Wednesday night, stripping himself naked and smearing oil on his body, which he then used to slide across the gym floor, authorities said. Nathan James Linder, 21, of Scranton, is charged with burglary, criminal trespass, theft, receiving stolen property, and criminal mischief. Linder was booked Friday into the Lackawanna County Prison in lieu of $5,000 bond. Scranton police officials told WNEP in Scranton that Linder, a former Scranton High School student, gained access to Neil Armstrong Elementary School by forcing open a maintenance door. The school's burglar alarm went off, though the neighbors of the school told the news station they did not hear the alarm sound. The school principal initially thought the oil on the gym floor was an end-of-the-year prank. When he reviewed the security footage, however, he saw a video of the burglar. There's pictures of that, too. I don't know. Take a look. Once inside the school, the male took his clothes off and was walking through at least a portion of the school without any clothes on, Scranton Police Chief Carl Graziano told the news station. The burglar was also seen drinking a carton of milk he apparently took from the cafeteria. The break-in happened sometime after maintenance workers finished their shift around 10:30 p.m. Wednesday. The school was closed for the day Thursday so administrators could clean up and ensure that there was no additional vandalism in the building. Students returned to class Friday. Administrators also shared the video footage, which was released to local media. Shortly after the images were released, a school resource officer recognized Linder from his time at Scranton High. Investigators called Linder's mother, who brought him to the police department. I'd love an interview with this guy. Why? That's the only question I have. Why? Why? And here we have a lesson in how to throw your career away in one afternoon. From ABC 7 Chicago, Catholic school principal arrested at strip club while on field trip. A Louisiana Catholic school principal has been arrested after visiting a strip club while on a school field trip to the nation's capital. Diocese of Baton Rouge spokesman Dan Bourne says Michael Como was arrested early Thursday in Washington, D.C., where he was with students from Holy Family Catholic School, a K-8 school in Port Allen. According to an arrest report, officers were dispatched to Archibald's Gentlemen's Club on a complaint about an intoxicated man refusing to pay his bill. The Advocate reports the 47-year-old faces charges of public intoxication and possession of an open container of alcohol. Bourne says Como has resigned. An interim principal will be appointed. Como also resigned from his position as a reserve Brusley police officer. Threw away 2 careers, it sounds like. Principal and reserve police officer. All you had to do was pay your bill. Well, I guess he got shit-faced drunk. I don't know if he was shit-faced drunk. That's just me, poetic license there. But he was on a field trip. I'd interview this guy too. One question: why? Why? The following story comes to us from WKYT.com. Roommate wanted Florida man story. Roommate wanted Florida man to flush toilet, so he spat on her, deputies say. Had 36-year-old Trevon Jordan Patterson simply flushed the toilet, he'd probably be a free man right now. Deputies in Indian River County told the Miami Herald his roommate called them on May 23rd enraged because Patterson wouldn't flush. They identified the roommate as 58-year-old Diana Griffin. She told them when she demanded Patterson flush the commode, he spat on her. Responding officers found spit covering Griffin's hair, shoulder, and stomach. She told deputies, you just had to flush a toilet. Dude, come on. She told deputies that Patterson started hurling profanities at her, so she picked up a plunger to protect herself. She started swinging at him to keep him away. Patterson wasn't at home by the time investigators arrived. They picked him up a few blocks away where he reportedly admitted to spitting on Griffin, but only after she attacked him with a cooking pot. He showed deputies a bruise on his forehead that he claimed was caused by the cooking pot, but Griffin said Patterson bruised his own forehead by running into a wall as she chased him with the plunger. Patterson faces a battery charge and must appear in court on June 18th. This isn't the first time Patterson has been accused of spitting on a female roommate. Something similar took place about 11 months ago, according to a report by Vero News. In the June 2018 incident, Patterson's roommate came home to find clothes and dishes scattered around the apartment. When she confronted him, he reportedly spat on her. I guess that's this guy's MO. He spits on people. It's kind of a weird move. Not a great roommate. He told investigators he thought his roommate had taken his clothes from a dresser in his bedroom, so he took clothes from her bedroom and threw them around. He also admitted to spitting on the woman. It is unclear if the roommate in the 2018 case is the same woman in the 2019 incident. I think what we have here is a serial spitter. I keep wanting to say this is a cute story, but when rabies are involved, there's nothing really cute about that. From KTAR.com, man bitten by rabid bat hiding between iPad and case. A New Hampshire man got a big surprise as he went to close up his iPad. A bat was wedged between the back of the device and its cover and bit his finger. Roy Syvertson of Southampton tells WMUR-TV it felt like a bee sting at first. When he realized he was dealing with a bat, he pressed down on the cover to keep it from flying away. The 86-year-old man managed to get the bat outside, but later found him dead. It turned out that the bat was rabid. Syvertson went to the hospital for rabies treatments. When asked how the bat got into his house and iPad case last week, Syvertson had already made a response. He quipped, "My joke of, he probably knew my password, won't last forever." Wah, wah, wah. Yeah. That's the story. That's the entire story. I don't know why I keep thinking it's a cute story. It's really not. Is something wrong with me? I'll have to ask my doctor. From apnews.com, Air Force says obscene contrails over Phoenix unintentional. In the show notes, there's the link to this article, but also a second link to an article with photos of the contrails. You can decide whether they're genitals or not. I don't want to influence you either way. U.S. Air Force officials say their pilots did not intentionally draw male anatomy with aircraft contrails in the skies above the Phoenix area. Photos taken of a series of sky ovals near Luke Air Force Base have circulated on social media, and some say the shapes resemble male genitals. Base spokesperson Becky Hayes told the Arizona Republic that leadership of the 56th Fighter Wing has reviewed the photos and flight audio to determine the shapes were made unintentionally. The F-35 fighter jets were conducting standard training maneuvers Tuesday. Hayes says the contrails were made as the jets were about to engage in a simulated dogfight. Personally, I don't think they look like male genitals. But people see what they want to see, I guess. Here's an article to piss you off from NBCnews.com. Special education teacher gives student with autism award for most annoying. An Indiana fifth grader who has autism was given a most annoying male award. There's a female award for this too? Was given a most annoying male award by his teacher during a ceremony attended by classmates and the school faculty, according to the boy's father. Rick Castiglione told the Times of the Northwest Indiana that he was at the awards luncheon last month for students at Bailey Preparatory Academy in Gary when the special education teacher presented his 11-year-old son with the trophy. Inscribed on the bottom of the award were the words, Bailey Preparatory Academy 2018-2019 Most Annoying Male. Castiglione told the outlet that other students, teachers, and the school's principal, Carlita Royal, were present for the ceremony. He said he tried not to make a scene and left the award on the table, but that the teacher stopped him and his son and told them not to forget the trophy. Yikes. This is making me cringe. It's giving me bad chills all over my body. The Gary Community School Corporation said in a statement to NBC affiliate WWLP, an apology was extended on behalf of the district to the family, and disciplinary action was taken against personnel involved. We were blindsided. We just weren't expecting it, Castiglione told the outlet. As a principal or teacher, you should never let this happen to any student. Castiglione said his son is nonverbal, occasionally rocks back and forth, and becomes easily emotional. Man, that teacher's a piece of shit. We just don't want any other kids to go through this, Castiglione told the paper. Just because they have special needs doesn't mean they don't have feelings. Royal did not immediately return NBC News' request for comment. Castiglione said he and his family already had plans to move to another city, and his son will not be returning to the school next year. I guess that's something. All right, here's where the show gets a little creepy crawly. And here's how we're going to start that. From cbc.ca, man caught smuggling nearly 5,000 leeches in luggage. A Niagara Falls, Ontario man has been fined $15,000 after he was caught flying into Canada with a suitcase full of leeches. Ippolit Budinov tried to smuggle, they have the number here, I guess they counted them, 4,788 live medicinal leeches in his carry-on luggage on October 17th, according to Environmental and Climate Change Canada. He'd just flown from Russia to Toronto's Pearson International Airport. Budinov carried the leeches in a large reusable grocery bag, said Jerry Burnett, operations manager of ECCC's Wildlife Enforcement Directorate, based in Burlington, Ontario. Within that bag were 10 smaller, dampened cloth bags. And this amazes me. A dog working with border agents smelled the leeches, Brunette said. A dog can sniff out leeches. That's fucking awesome. Pardon my language. This is our first large-scale illegal leech import, he said, though the ministry sees a lot of illegally imported reptiles, turtles, tortoises, and snakes. The ministry sent the leeches to the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, where Sebastian Kvist, curator of invertebrate zoology, identified them as Hirudo verbana, a threatened medicinal leech. Surprisingly, all the leeches survived, Kvist said. There's a positive. Huh? 5,000 leeches, not a single one spared. About 240 were then sent to the American Museum of Natural History in New York, where DNA sequencing of their stomach contents revealed they were caught in the wild. People have been harvesting the breed for medicinal purposes since medieval times, Kvist said. New Age medicine practitioners use them for everything from lessening arthritis pain to preventing baldness, although there's no scientific proof that this works. The only proven use of leeches in medicine, he said, is to stimulate blood flow in reattached fingers and toes. In some cases, they also deter strokes. Medicinal leeches sell for between $8 and $20 per leech, he said. That's a pretty good going rate for a leech, I would imagine. $20 for a leech? Not only are they threatened and unregulated, but they're an invasive species too. Kvist said some leech populations exclusive to Europe have been found in Alberta because people drop them in local lakes when they're done with them. Canadians are so nice that once they're done with a leech, they put it back into nature. I think most Americans would probably flush them. Budanov pleaded guilty on May 24th to violating the Wild Animal and Plant Protection and Regulation of International and Interprovincial Trade Act. That's a mouthful. I need to catch my breath after that one. He was fined and also banned for a year from importing, exporting, and possessing any animals regulated through the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. Brunette said illegal wildlife trade is worth about $20 billion a year. Canada does not tolerate the exploitation of threatened species for profit, he said. I'm sure he was very serious and stern when he said that. And check the show notes, you can look at pictures of leeches. They're not cute. Continuing the trend of creepy crawlies. Hawaii is a beautiful place, but they have a dire warning for you. This article comes from arstechnica.com. Hawaii warns tourists of parasitic worm that can burrow into human brains. Think about that for a second. Hawaii's health department has released fresh warnings about parasitic worm that can infest human brains after officials confirmed that 3 more visitors to the state picked up the infection. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed 3 new cases in unrelated adults visiting Hawaii Island from the U.S. mainland, the health department announced. The latest known victims who became infected at different times bring the state's 2018 case total to 10 and the 2019 total to 5. While there were 17 confirmed cases in 2017, the state counted only 2 cases total in the prior decade. The new case counts indicate a sustained boom in the parasite's population and spread. The parasitic worm in these cases is the rat lungworm, aka a word I definitely cannot pronounce. I'm going to try this. It's Angiostrongylus cantonensis. All right. I'm not going to be able to pronounce that if that comes up in the article again, so I apologize ahead of time. As its common name suggests, the wandering worm primarily takes up residence in rats' lungs, where female worms lay their eggs. Young worms leave the nest early to find their own windy homes. Larvae get coughed up into rats' throats and swallowed. The hosting rat eventually poops out the young parasites, which then get gobbled up by feces-feasting snails and slugs. When other rodents come along and eat those infected mollusks, the prepubescent parasites migrate to the rat's brains to mature before setting into the lungs and reproducing. The cycle then starts again. Humans are an accidental host. typically infected when they inadvertently eat an infected slug or snail that has slid into their salad fixings or other produce. Officials have blamed the recent boom in human cases in part on an explosion of an invasive semi-slug, which is particularly good at picking up the parasite. In humans, young worms make their way to the brain, as they would in a rat, but the rambling invaders rarely survive long enough to make it to their final destination in the lungs. Instead, they usually die somewhere in the central nervous system. In some cases, the infection is symptomless and resolves on its own. In others, the worm meanders around the brain, and its presence, movement, and death in the central nervous system all contribute to symptoms. Those can vary wildly, but sometimes include headaches, neck stiffness, tingling or pain, low-grade fever, nausea, and vomiting. In severe cases, the infection can lead to nerve damage, paralysis, coma, and even death. There was a story in the UK not too long ago about a teenager took a dare to eat a garden slug or a garden snail, and it was infected with one of these parasites, and he was bound to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. He lived a couple of years, I think, but completely paralyzed in a wheelchair. I don't think he could feed himself or anything. I mean, this parasite is serious business. I mean, don't take it from a podcast guy. I have the Center for Disease Control telling us this. Diagnosing the infection can be tricky since there are no specific blood tests that identify the parasite. In Hawaii, officials confirm cases by trying to pick up and amplify fragments of worm DNA from sick patients' cerebrospinal fluid or other tissue. Still, there are no specific treatments, and there is unclear how helpful antiparasitic drugs are at clearing the infection. Patients are generally led to manage symptoms and wait for the worms to die on their own. For these reasons, health officials say prevention is paramount. It's important that we ensure our visitors know the precautions to take to prevent rat lungworm disease, which can have severe long-term effects. Hawaii's Health Director Bruce Anderson said in a statement, "Getting information to visitors about the disease is just as critical as raising awareness among our residents. The department recommends that visitors and residents carefully inspect and wash all produce stored in sealed containers. It also recommends that farmers and gardeners try to control snail and slug problems. This won't prevent every case, however. Officials noted that a person in one of the latest confirmed cases became infected in December of 2018 after purposely swallowing a slug on a dare. The other two cases, both from 2019, were suspected to be linked to eating homemade salads and grazing fruits and vegetables straight from the land." How are you feeling? Do you feel icky? I feel icky. I don't want to be alone in this. Please say you feel icky. Thank you. And finally, closing out our trifecta on creepy crawlies from WCYB.com. Woman's brain tumor turns out to be parasite growing in her head. Rachel Palma's symptoms were strange and disturbing. She was having hallucinations, insomnia, and horrific nightmares. Her right hand would suddenly give way and she'd drop things. She was having trouble finding the right words and made alarming phone calls to her family that she didn't remember. "My episodes were getting more and more bizarre," Palma, 42, who lives in Middletown, New York, told Today. "There were days that I didn't know where I was." She'd been to urgent care several times after the trouble began early last year, but the cause remained a mystery. Finally, an MRI scan of her head caught doctors' attention. It showed a lesion on the left side of her brain, roughly the size of a marble. The left side of the brain in right-handed people controls language and executive function, said Dr. Jonathan Razzulli, chief neurosurgery resident at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York City, who was part of the team that treated Palma. Her lesion was located right next to the area of the brain that controls speech, and it lit up brightly when the MRI was done with contrast, suggesting a malignant brain tumor, Razzulli added. Doctors counseled Palma that she was potentially facing a cancer that required surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. My husband and I were both in shock, and we just wanted it taken care of, Palma recalled when she heard the diagnosis. I never really allowed myself to think that it was cancer. Turned out she was right. When Dr. Raj Srivastava, perhaps that's his name, a neurosurgeon at Mount Sinai Hospital, and Razuli opened her skull during surgery last fall, they expected to find a typical brain tumor, soft and spread out. Instead, they saw this very firm, very well encapsulated thing. It looked like a quail egg, Razuli recalled. They removed it in one piece and cut into it to see what was inside. Candy! Lots and lots of candy. Not even close. Sure enough, a baby tapeworm came out of that lesion, Razuli said. The medical team cheered with relief on behalf of the patient, knowing her prognosis was now much better than they'd found a malignant brain tumor. She had a single parasite in her head that we were able to take out. We were very happy. It was one of those rare situations where you see a parasite and you're like, wow, this is great. A parasite in the brain sounds like the plot of a horror movie, but it's preventable infection from a pork tapeworm known as, another one of these words, neurocystic necrosis. Okay. A leading cause of adult-onset epilepsy worldwide, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. About 1,000 people are hospitalized for that neurocystic necrosis. I'm just going to say for that tapeworm. About 1,000 people are hospitalized for that tapeworm in the U.S. each year. Well, it's not always from the tapeworm, I guess. Why do words have to be so difficult? With most patients coming from regions where the disease is common, including Latin America, the agency noted, Razuli described it as super rare in the U.S. When a patient complains of symptoms and has risk factors, for this type of infection, such as living in or traveling to those regions or eating raw pork, doctors can put the two together and get rid of the parasite with antibiotics. No surgery required. But that tapeworm wasn't even on the radar when doctors evaluated Palma's lesion because she had none of the risk factors. She recalled her reaction when told she'd been carrying a parasite in her brain. I thought, gross. I didn't know what to think. I was relieved at that point that it wasn't cancer and that I wouldn't need any further treatment, Palma said. I don't like to speculate how I may have contracted it because I don't know. It happened when people swallow microscopic tapeworm eggs, the CDC explained. The process is not a pretty picture. Let's say a food service worker eats undercooked pork that has a tapeworm inside of it, Razuli said. The tapeworm develops into an adult inside his colon and starts shedding eggs inside his feces. If that worker goes to the bathroom and doesn't wash his hands, well, he will have the eggs on his fingers. If he then handles food that's raw or not thoroughly cooked, like salad, a person can swallow a tapeworm egg, which can travel anywhere in the body and typically ends up in the brain, Razuli said. It's so rare in the United States that you really don't have to take any sort of precautions. It's like once in a blue moon, he noted. When traveling, he urged people to make sure any raw fruits and vegetables they eat are washed very well, especially in countries where that tapeworm is endemic, like Mexico, he said. See, that word keeps popping up, and I have to replace it with tapeworm because I just cannot pronounce it. It's killing me. Palma's symptoms have since all resolved, and the final brain scan 2 months ago was all clear. She has resigned herself to never knowing how she contracted the infection, she said, focusing instead on the good outcome. I'm basically cured, she noted. Basically, you are cured. You took it out of your head. You're okay now. Anyway, that was the trifecta of creepy crawlies. I hope you enjoyed it. I kind of did. And I think we're just going to end the show on that note. I think it's for the best. And that's it for this week. We're done. We're out. You can go do something else. I can go do something else. Hope you enjoyed the show. Visit us online at otheritemsofinterest.com. Please email us, send us a message, even to tell us we suck, at otheritemsofinterestpod@gmail.com. We'll see you next week, and we'll miss you. Bye-bye.